5:11 local time. The first warning tone slices through the cockpit before either pilot says a word. It is sharp, electronic, and instantly out of place. The AH-64 Apache is already flying low over the Strait of Hormuz, gliding just above the dark blue water with the kind of precision that leaves no space for mistakes. Below, the sea is calm enough to catch the pale light of early morning. Cargo ships move through the narrow channel like steel walls. Heat shimmer hangs above the surface. Ahead, the horizon looks clear. To the left, there is only distance. To the right, the edge of danger. Then the second alert sounds. Captain Reeves does not take his eyes off the flight path. His gloved hands stay locked on the controls as the helicopter holds its low, fast line over the water. Beside him, Chief Warrant Officer Mercer drops his gaze to the sensor screen and stops for half a second. Contact. Airborne. Fast. He expands the feed, then another shape appears, and another. 4 in total. The cockpit does not become louder, it becomes tighter. The Apache's twin engines keep a hard, steady growl as the aircraft pushes forward, the rotor disc slicing through the humid air with raw mechanical force. The helicopter is configured for combat overwatch, not for a clean air-to-air duel above open water. Its nose sensor is searching. Its forward cannon waits beneath the fuselage. Guided missiles sit silent on the stub wings. But the objects closing in now are small, low, and moving with a purpose that removes any doubt. Mercer locks onto the lead contact as it races in from the northeast, barely above the surface. It is too fast to be civilian, too steady to be random, and too deliberate to be background clutter. Another contact climbs slightly higher behind it, offset as if supporting the move. The remaining 2 spread wider, angling outward before curving back toward the Apache's path. This is not a loose formation, it is a setup. 4 drones, Mercer says, his voice flat. Possible offensive payload configuration. Reeves banks 2 degrees left, just enough to disrupt the approach without losing too much speed. He keeps the nose down. Climbing would place the helicopter against the brightening sky. Staying low keeps it hidden inside the visual noise of the water, but it also compresses every second. There is no space to drift, no space to hover, and no space to second guess. The strait suddenly feels much smaller. Below them, a merchant vessel cuts through the channel, its white wake spreading behind it. Farther ahead on the port side, another ship moves slowly through the water, massive and heavy, turning the route into a corridor of steel. The Apache is now boxed in by sea traffic, tight airspace, and 4 incoming drones moving fast enough to bring disaster within seconds. Mercer slews the sensor again. The lead drone flashes across the screen for an instant. Dark body, fixed wings, clean profile. No confusion left. Confirmed threat. After that, neither man says a word. The first drone comes in low and fast from the right front quarter. Reeves drops the Apache down and left. The rotor tips bite into the air as the helicopter dips closer to the sea. Spray bursts beneath them. Warning tones pulse again. Mercer fights to keep the target inside the sensor box, but the drone is small, and the background is nothing but glare, motion, and water. Right side, closing. Reeves snaps the aircraft level, then throws it harder left. The movement is violent in speed, but controlled in execution, practiced so deeply it happens almost before thought. The drone flashes across the nose at terrifying speed, close enough for both men to see it with their own eyes now. Not as a symbol on a display, but as a real machine with a clear purpose. It misses by seconds, not by much. Mercer swings the forward cannon into position. The Apache's M230 system releases a short, harsh burst, sending a tremor through the frame. Tracer lines tear through the empty space where the drone had just been, but the target is already past them, slipping behind the helicopter and vanishing from view. Lost one. Tracking too high. Another burst goes out. Another contact is climbing. That one concerns Mercer even more. The higher drone is not rushing straight in. It is observing, correcting, and giving the others a better angle. The remaining pair spread even wider, stretching the Apache's field of view and forcing the crew to decide what to track and what to risk ignoring. Reeves reaches for the flare dispenser. One press. Flares burst from the helicopter and trail behind in bright burning arcs against the dim morning air. There is still no clean lock tone, no absolute certainty about what these drones are carrying. But at this altitude, at this speed, certainty is already a luxury they no longer have. The helicopter surges forward. Mercer catches the third drone for half a second as it cuts in from the left, low and fast, skimming so close to the water that its shadow flickers across the chop. The fourth stays farther back, high enough to guide the others, patient enough to wait. The move is coordinated. This is not harassment. This is not a warning pass. This is a direct attempt to bring the Apache down. The lead drone circles wide for another run. The second begins angling inward from above. Mercer's display fills with crossing lines, threat cues, and unstable returns. Reeves keeps the aircraft low, forcing every movement through the narrowest possible gap between ships, sea, and sky. The Apache is still flying, still armed, still in the fight, but now the enemy has rhythm. Mercer zooms in once more on the closest target. This time, the image holds just long enough. He sees the shape beneath the body. He sees the mounting point. He sees enough. "Armed drone," he says. "No doubt." Reeves does not answer. He throws the Apache into a harder bank as the first real attack run begins. Ahead, the Strait of Hormuz tightens into a corridor of steel and light. Behind them, 4 drones close in, and over the water, at 5:11 in the morning, the fight truly begins. 5:13 local time. The first attack run does not end when the drone misses, it resets. That is what makes it dangerous. The AH-64 Apache is still racing low over the Strait of Hormuz, engines pushing hard, rotor wash tearing the morning air into a violent blur above the water. Captain Reeves keeps the aircraft just high enough to stay clear of the surface, and just low enough to deny the drones a clean outline against the sky. Every correction is small. Every second matters. There is no altitude to trade, no safe direction to climb, and no room for error inside a channel this tight. Behind the cockpit glass, the sea is no longer scenery. It is a boundary. Chief Warrant Officer Mercer drags the sensor across the sky and catches the nearest contact reappearing off the right rear quarter. The drone that overshot them has already turned back. It is not leaving. It is adjusting for another pass. "Right rear," Mercer says. "Low and fast." Before Reeves can respond, Mercer finds the second drone dropping from above. High contact coming down. 2-axis approach. That changes everything. One drone is low, forcing the helicopter to move laterally. One drone is high, forcing it to guard against a dive from above. The other 2 remain wider out, holding enough distance to either close in or keep shaping the angles. This is not a blind rush. Whoever launched these drones designed the approach to split the Apache's attention and shrink its reaction time. Over land, Reeves might have used terrain, structures, or elevation to break the pattern. Here, above open water, there is nothing to hide behind except movement. The first drone comes in from starboard, skimming so low that its outline flickers against the reflected glare rising off the sea. Reeves rolls left, then snaps level just as the second contact drops from high off the port side. The helicopter lurches hard, sending a wave of vibration through the frame. Alarm tones pulse one after another. Mercer loses both tracks for the length of a breath, finds the high contact again, then snaps the turret back toward the lower one. "Take the low one," Reeves says. Mercer is already there. The M230 system comes alive beneath the nose in a short, controlled burst, sending 30mm fire across open air before the stream walks closer to the target. The drone shifts suddenly, not by accident, on purpose. It slips sideways just enough to let the burst pass within a few feet, then keeps coming with unsettling precision. Reeves pushes the nose down and banks again. The Apache drops closer to the water than either man wants, close enough for the rotor wash to smear the surface into broken white streaks. Farther ahead, a tanker fills part of the forward view, turning the channel into a tightening cage. The drone tears past the helicopter's right side, missing again, but only after forcing the Apache lower and farther away from its preferred line. The second drone takes advantage instantly. It drops from above the left side, steep and fast, trying to arrive while Reeves is still recovering from the first break. Mercer catches it late, pulls the cannon upward, and releases another short burst. This time, the tracers meet the target. The drone jerks. One wing breaks away. For a split second, it keeps moving on momentum alone, its body twisting hard through the air before it tumbles into the water and erupts in a sharp white-orange flash just behind the Apache. One splash confirmed. Mercer does not sound relieved. He sounds busy. 3 drones remain, and now they know the helicopter can answer back. The surviving drones do not scatter. They adjust. One climbs higher, staying outside the immediate cannon window. Another slides wide to the left, almost disappearing into the haze above the sea. The third comes straight in from behind, low and aggressive, as if willing to trade itself for distance. Lost visual on left contact. Keep the rear. I'll fly the brake. Reeves pulls the Apache into a tight turn that would be manageable in open air and unforgiving over water. The aircraft shudders as the blades bite hard into the humid morning air. Mercer sees the rear drone closing on the sensor feed. Small, dark, steady, growing far too quickly. There is no launch warning, no clean signal that explains exactly what kind of threat they are facing. That uncertainty is almost worse. It forces the crew to defend against every possibility at once. Reeves punches flares again. Bright fire spills behind the helicopter in a staggered line, falling toward the sea. The pursuing drone does not turn away. It keeps coming. Mercer waits half a second longer than instinct wants, letting the target grow inside the sight picture. Then he fires. The M230 bucks in measured bursts. Water erupts behind the drone. Fire passes over it. Then one burst clips close enough to throw the target off balance. It wobbles, but it does not go down. Still up. The Apache surges forward, threading the gap between its own wake turbulence and the looming merchant traffic ahead. Reeves cannot simply outrun the drones. He can only force bad angles, deny clean approaches, and buy seconds. Mercer slews the sensor left. There. The contact he lost has returned. It is racing in low from port now, almost at the same moment as the damaged drone continues closing from behind. The attack has formed again, this time into a pincer. One from the rear, one from the side, one above, waiting. The cockpit seems to shrink around them. Reeves yanks the helicopter right, trying to break the side attacker's line. Mercer fires left across the nose, the tracers cutting so close to the canopy line that the sound becomes a solid metallic roar. The low drone flashes through the burst, too fast to confirm a hit. Then it drops out of view. Then something erupts off the Apache's rear quarter. It is not a direct hit, but it is close enough. The entire helicopter jolts as if a massive invisible hand has struck the tail boom. Warning lights flash across the panel. One system caution appears, then another. For a split second, the aircraft yaws out of line before Reeves forces it back under control. We took something! Mercer's eyes move across the instruments, then snap back outside. Hydraulics are still responding. Engines are still pulling. Rotor is still holding. The Apache is damaged, but it is still in the air. For now. Behind them, one drone burns on the water. Ahead of them, 3 more remain in the fight. And inside the cockpit, both men understand the same truth at the exact same moment. This is no longer about avoiding contact. It is about surviving long enough for support to arrive. 5:15 local time. The distress call reaches the ship in broken pieces. Not because the Apache crew is unclear, but because everything is happening at once. Inside the combat information center of the nearest U.S. warship along the straight traffic lane, voices stay controlled, low and precise. Radar screens glow in the dim light. Surface tracks move steadily across the displays. Merchant traffic fills the channel in a dense, shifting pattern. Then a watchstander isolates the transmission coming through the tactical net. Broken words, clipped coordinates, altitude, heading, damage report, Apache under pressure, multiple armed drones, 3 remaining. The room changes instantly, not in volume, in focus. A radar operator leans closer to his console and refines the filter for low, fast air contacts over water. Another watchstander pulls the helicopter's track history. A third aligns the sensor picture with the Apache's last reported vector. What looked like clutter seconds earlier begins to form a pattern. Small returns, hard to hold, moving too fast and too directly to ignore. Possible low flyers bearing 340, correlate with airborne call. Correlated. The tactical action officer does not waste a word. Mark them as threats pending visual confirmation. Support the helicopter. Out over the strait, the Apache is still flying low, still damaged, and still being pursued. Captain Reeves holds the aircraft in a shallow right bank, trying to keep speed while preventing the drones from settling into a clean approach behind him. Every vibration through the frame now feels sharper. The earlier near impact has changed the way the helicopter feels. Nothing catastrophic. Not yet. But no one inside the cockpit confuses being airborne with being safe. Chief Warrant Officer Mercer drags the sensor back across the waterline. Rear contact still there. High contact offset left. Lost third. He finds it again almost immediately. Low, wide, waiting just outside the helicopter's immediate cannon arc until the last possible moment. The drones are not simply rushing anymore. They are adjusting. That is what makes the next minute worse. On the warship, the picture tightens. A mast-mounted sensor begins feeding a cleaner line on one of the drone tracks. The operations team overlays heading, speed, and possible intercept windows. Another ship farther out acknowledges the contact report and turns its own sensors toward the channel. The network is beginning to form. This is no longer one platform reacting on its own. It is multiple U.S. assets building one clear operating picture in real time. That is the moment the Apache stops being only a helicopter in trouble. It becomes the center of an American response. Helicopter, this is Warship 01. The radio call comes through calm, clean, and clipped. We have your track. Continue heading 085. State damage status. Reeves answers without looking down. Controllable. Still under contact. 3 drones remaining. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch team hears exactly what it needs. The aircraft is still maneuvering. It is still armed. It can still follow direction. That means the fight can be shaped. A fire control operator refines the nearest air track. Another operator pulls electro-optical coverage toward the sector where one drone had climbed higher. the assumption forms quickly. One of the remaining drones may not be pressing in directly. It may be acting as a spotter or relay, staying beyond the Apache's immediate reach while feeding position updates to the others. That matters, because if one drone is guiding the others, it is also revealing a pattern. High contact holding, possible controller assist. Copy, keep him tracked. On the Apache, Mercer hears the ship's voice again. Stand by for advisory. You have one contact at 6 o'clock low, one at 10 o'clock high, and one wide port. For the first time since the encounter began, the crew is no longer fighting blind. Reeves shifts the helicopter 2 degrees right, using the ship's call-out to narrow the rear drone's approach angle. Mercer pivots the sensor left and catches the wide port contact climbing slightly before turning back inward. It is setting up another crossing run. Visual! Port contact reacquired. He swings the cannon and waits. The Apache cannot waste ammunition across empty water. Every burst has to matter. The rear drone commits first, choosing the simplest geometry available, a direct pursuit line against a damaged helicopter with limited room to climb. Reeves does not break early. He holds steady longer than instinct wants, trusting the warship's wider picture. Mercer keeps the target centered, breath locked, jaw tight. He lets the drone grow larger in the sight picture. Now, he says. Reeves snaps the helicopter left. Mercer releases a controlled burst. The rounds cut backward through the air just as the drone crosses into the stream. For one instant, nothing seems to happen. Then the target shudders, rolls hard, and drops into the water in a violent spray of broken composite and a bright flash. Splash 1. There is no celebration. Because the other two move at once, the high drone drops lower, as if sensing that the advantage is slipping away if it remains only an observer. The portside drone tightens its turn and accelerates. For a few seconds, both are converging from different altitudes and different bearings, forcing the Apache into another split defense problem. Inside the Combat Information Center, the radar picture updates again. A signals operator catches a directional electronic trace tied to the area where the drones first appeared. It is not a confirmed launch point, not yet, but it is enough to suggest something more important than a visual target. A source. A probable control corridor. The tactical action officer studies the developing picture and understands the implication immediately. Whoever launched the group has started leaving fingerprints across the spectrum. Maintain support to Apache. Continue building origin track. Out over Hormuz, Reeves feels the aircraft settle for half a second after the takedown. Mercer is already searching for the next target. The helicopter is still damaged. The sea is still tight beneath them. The attack is still active, but the balance has shifted. The drones came after one aircraft. Now they are being watched by the entire American system around it. Mercer zooms in on the lower of the two remaining contacts. The image sharpens just enough to show the drone turning in for another decisive pass. He studies the sight and speaks into the intercom without emotion. 2 left. Then the warship's voice returns over the radio, colder than before. Apache, stand by. Weapons free if clear. 5:17 local time. The airspace above the strait has become a trap, not for the Apache, for the drones. Captain Reeves feels it before he says anything. The geometry is changing. For the first time since the encounter began, the helicopter is no longer reacting 1 second too late to every incoming threat. The ship's call-outs are tightening the picture. The drone tracks are no longer just sudden flashes of motion and instinctive brakes. They are becoming known, measured, predicted. That does not make them harmless. It makes the next few seconds decisive. Low contact closing, Chief Warrant Officer Mercer says, his voice clipped behind the oxygen mask. High contact holding offset. 2 drones remain. One is aggressive, committed, still trying to finish what the group started. The other is disciplined, patient, almost surgical in the way it hangs back and waits for the helicopter to expose a weakness. Reeves keeps the Apache low over the water, nose slightly down, speed high enough to keep control authority, altitude low enough to stay hidden inside the glare, and clutter rising from the sea. A merchant ship looms off the right front quarter, its steel hull turning part of the channel into a moving wall. Beyond it, heat haze and pale morning light flatten distance until judging space becomes almost impossible. The low drone comes first. It races in from the Apache's 6 o'clock, skimming over the water with straight-line discipline that leaves little doubt about its purpose. It is not probing. It is not distracting. It is trying to bring the helicopter down. 6 low. Fast. Very fast. Reeves does not brake immediately. That is the critical difference now. Earlier, he had been forced to maneuver the instant a threat appeared, giving up the initiative just to survive. Now he holds the line a fraction longer, trusting the wider operating picture coming from the ship. Trusting that someone else is seeing more than he can see from inside a damaged cockpit, a few dozen feet above open water. The warship's voice cuts in. Hold heading, stand by. That order costs nerves. The drone is closing fast enough to become visible without the sensor now, a dark shape vibrating above the waterline, growing larger every second. Mercer has the cannon slaved in and waiting, but the target is still outside the cleanest firing window. The wrong shot will miss. The wrong break will expose the helicopter to the second drone still waiting above and left. Stand by, the radio repeats. Reeves holds. Every instinct in the cockpit is screaming to turn. The drone reaches the edge of lethal proximity. Now! Reeves snaps the Apache into a violent right brake, the rotor disc tilting hard enough to throw the horizon sideways across the canopy. At the same instant, Mercer fires. The M230 chain gun hammers beneath the nose, recoil punching through the airframe in short, brutal pulses. The burst cuts across the drone's projected path instead of chasing where it used to be. That is the difference between panic and training. For one frozen moment, the drone stays intact. Then the rounds connect. The fuselage bursts apart in a spray of fragments and fire, and the drone comes apart over the water just behind the Apache's right side. Burning debris skips across the surface of the strait and disappears into the wake. One down, Mercer says sharply. But the call fades almost as soon as it is spoken, because the final drone is already moving. It has watched the entire sequence. It waited for the helicopter to commit. Now it drops in. Not from directly above, from an offset angle. Smart. It comes down from the port side on a descending line designed to force the Apache into a bad choice. Stay low and risk the waterline, or climb and become easier to see against the morning sky. At first, Reeves catches only a flicker. Mercer sees the full shape a second later, and his stomach tightens. This one is different. He is right. The last drone does not rush the final pass. It shapes it. It keeps just enough distance to deny Mercer an easy shot, while slowly taking away the Apache's options. Reeves can feel the earlier damage in every control input now. The helicopter still responds, but not perfectly. Not smoothly. Time, fuel, and mechanical tolerance are all running out. The warship has the track, but the final moment is happening too close, too low, and too fast for anyone aboard to guarantee a clean solution without putting the helicopter at risk. The fight is collapsing inward again, back to the two men inside the cockpit. Mercer drags the sensor across the drone's flight path. The image shakes with vibration, glare, and motion blur. The target vanishes, reappears, vanishes again. Reeves cuts left, then right, forcing the drone to choose an approach lane instead of staying outside the Apache's reach. The ship's voice returns. Apache, maintain for 3 seconds. 3 seconds. In open air, 3 seconds is nothing. Here, it feels endless. Reeves locks his jaw and holds course. 1 second, the drone closes. 2 seconds. Warning tones pulse again through the cockpit, layered over engine noise and rotor thunder. 3 seconds. Mercer sees the angle open. There! He fires. The first burst slips just behind the target. Too much lead, too much motion. He corrects instantly and fires again. This time, the rounds meet the drone head-on. The target breaks apart in mid-air at shockingly close range, flashing orange-white across the left side of the canopy. Fragments streak past the Apache. One piece strikes the fuselage with a sharp metallic clang. Another spins away and disappears into the sea. The helicopter bucks in the disturbed air, then drives through it. Still flying, still level, still alive. For a moment, there is nothing in the cockpit except breathing. Then Mercer checks the sky again. Nothing behind them, nothing above them. No more tracks. The warship comes back over the radio, calm and cold. Apache, threats appear neutralized. Reeves does not answer right away. He keeps both hands on the controls, eyes fixed forward, making sure the helicopter truly belongs to him again before he lets the words mean anything. Around them, the Strait of Hormuz becomes quiet in the strangest way. The merchant traffic is still there. The sea is still moving. The engines are still pounding. But the immediate chaos has ended so suddenly that it feels unreal. 4 drones came after 1 American helicopter. Now all 4 are gone. Mercer lowers the cannon a fraction and stares at the blank sensor feed where the last target had been only seconds earlier. Then another voice from the warship enters the net, slower and more deliberate than before. We have probable launch origin. That changes everything. The Apache did not just make it through the danger area. It kept the enemy active long enough for the Navy to see where the threat came from. 5:21 local time. The first sign that the fight is over is not silence. It is breathing. Inside the cockpit of the AH-64 Apache, the engine noise is still constant. The rotors are still beating the air into a hard mechanical rhythm. The warning panel is still alive with caution lights that were not there 10 minutes earlier. The helicopter is flying. That fact alone feels almost impossible. Captain Reeves keeps both hands steady on the controls and does not let them relax. Not yet. A machine that survives a close encounter over open water can still fail on the way back. Chief Warrant Officer Mercer sweeps the sensor one more time across the pale sky and the shipping lane below. No fast movers, no low contacts, no new threat cues. Only merchant traffic, sea haze, and the long wake lines of vessels moving through the strait as if nothing had happened. "Sky's clean," he says. Only then does Reeves answer the ship. "Warship 01 Apache. Threats neutralized. Aircraft damaged. Request immediate recovery vector." The reply comes back without delay. "Apache recovery vector follows. Maintain current heading for 30 seconds. Then come right to 095. You are clear. Repeat, you are clear. You are clear." It is the first sentence either crewman has heard all morning that gives them any space to breathe. But relief does not enter the cockpit the way fear did. Fear came instantly. Sharp, absolute. Relief comes slowly, carefully. Through systems checked once, then checked again. Mercer scans the damage cues. One caution remains steady, another flickers and disappears. Flight controls are still responding. Engine performance is stable. Rotor RPM is holding. The tail has taken stress, perhaps from fragments, perhaps from the pressure wave, but the aircraft is still obeying. Still, Reeves does not trust the helicopter yet. He respects it. That is different. Below them, the Strait of Hormuz stretches ahead in layers of steel-gray traffic and dark blue water. A tanker moves broadside through the channel, enormous and indifferent. Farther off, the U.S. warship that built the air picture now sits like a controlled point of gravity at the center of a widening American response. Sensor masts are turned. Radars are working. Watches are elevated. What began as a helicopter in danger has become something larger. Because now the Navy is not just looking at the encounter. It is looking through it. Inside the Combat Information Center, the drone sequence is already being reconstructed in real time. Track histories are locked. Altitudes, headings, timing gaps, approach arcs, and possible command link intervals are being laid over the map of the strait. The first drone came in low, the second dropped from above. One held back long enough to shape the angles. Another stayed wider out, as if relaying information. None of that looks random now, not anymore. The tactical picture has moved from survival to attribution. A signals operator isolates a cluster of emissions tied to the moments before the first intercept. Another analyst correlates the drone tracks with a narrow corridor reaching back toward the Iranian side of the waterway. It is not courtroom-proof. It does not need to be. In a military picture, patterns matter, timing matters, origin matters. And the attackers have left all three. "We have a probable launch corridor," one watchstander reports. "Refine it," the tactical action officer says. "No assumptions. Build the chain." That is how the U.S. Navy answers a swarm attack. Not with noise, with clarity. Back in the Apache, Mercer finally looks away from the sensor and down toward the cockpit floor, where the vibration has shifted just enough to reveal how tired his legs have become. His gloves are dark with sweat. His jaw aches from being clenched too long. He looks out through the side of the canopy and sees dark scoring near the fuselage skin. Small marks from fragments that came close enough to count. Close enough to imagine the alternative. He says nothing. Reeves says nothing either. There is nothing useful to say yet. The helicopter turns toward recovery. The sea begins to open slightly ahead of them. The warship's vector is exact, guiding the damaged Apache toward the safest approach path available. Another American aircraft is now overhead at a distance, not because the encounter is still active, but because once a coordinated drone move reveals itself, no one assumes it was the only plan prepared that morning. The Apache descends gradually, carefully. No heroics, no dramatic flourish, just procedure. That is what makes it feel real. When the landing finally comes, it is firmer than usual, but controlled. The wheels touch, the weight settles, rotor wash pushes outward across the deck in a hard rolling wave. The ground crew moves immediately, disciplined and fast, but no one rushes blindly toward a combat aircraft that has just returned from a live encounter. The engines spool down in stages, the blades slow, the cockpit opens. Only then do Reeves and Mercer step out. They do not climb down like victors. They step down like men who understand exactly how close the morning came to ending differently. Maintenance crews are already moving around the helicopter, checking the tail surfaces, fuselage scoring, sensor housing, and the rear quarter where the closest pressure wave may have reached the aircraft. Every mark tells part of the story. Composite scratches, fragment pitting, heat discoloration, nothing dramatic enough for a headline, more than enough for a debrief. Inside the ship, the operational meaning of the encounter is already taking shape. 4 threat drones down, 1 American helicopter damaged but recovered, crew alive. Sensor records intact. Radio logs preserved, electronic traces captured, a probable origin corridor established. What the operators intended as a fast takedown over a narrow channel has instead revealed their method, their timing, and likely their launch logic to a force built to study exactly those details. And that is the part they did not plan for. They planned the move. They did not plan on the Apache surviving. They did not plan on the data trail. They did not plan on a damaged American aircraft staying in the fight long enough for the entire system around it to wake up and start seeing the full picture. By the time the sun climbs higher over Hormuz, the water looks calm again. The merchant ships keep moving. The radios sound ordinary. The helicopter sits on deck, scarred but intact. And somewhere beyond the visible horizon, the people who sent those drones now understand a harder truth than the one they began with. They did not bring down the Apache. They showed the Navy where to look next.